The Galactic Concord ruled with confident arrogance. They believed peace had been achieved through superior administration, endless bureaucracy, and the quiet suppression of inconvenient truths. Earth was one such truth, a minor, post-catastrophic species, officially classified as contained. Their collapsed century, a period of environmental disaster, global conflict, and technological regression, had sealed their fate. No fleet, no off-world colonies, no functional AI, no threat. The Concorde assigned a single observation satellite to the Sol system, just to be polite, and forgot about them. But Earth hadn't collapsed. Not really. They had gone dark on purpose. Not destroyed, but hidden, shut off from galactic eyes. They watched, they waited, and they built. Beneath Jupiter's moon Ganymede, in pressure vaults layered with gravitic shielding, something impossibly ancient and unimaginably massive stirred. The first hint came when a long-range Concorde probe failed to return telemetry. Then a second. Then an entire automated scout fleet simply vanished. Official reports blamed solar interference, radiation, sensor failure. But in the darkest corners of Concorde chatter, a whisper began to echo. Something blinked, and a planet moved. It made no sense, but anomalies never do until they become undeniable. The next sign came from the stars themselves. Literally, astronomers across 3 sectors logged it. A subtle drift in stellar positions around Sol. Light curves inconsistent with planetary orbits. Some claimed it was a data error. Others weren't so sure. Then someone ran the models. They simulated light path distortions, gravitational influence that shouldn't have been there. It all pointed to one conclusion. A mass the size of a planet had shifted. Deliberately. The Concorde tried to keep it quiet. But you can't hide the sky. Not when stars are whispering. Not when signals once thought random start to align. Not when Ganymede, dead, frozen, insignificant, starts broadcasting. Just a pulse at first. Then a phrase. Not a demand. Not a threat. A statement. Observation terminated. Memory mode engaged. Then silence. Not passive silence. A waiting kind of silence. Panic didn't come right away. The Concorde was too proud for that. But analysts were reassigned. Satellites retasked. Old files marked obsolete were decrypted. They found something unexpected. A record. A Terran ship pre-collapse. Its name, Samsara Protocol. Its mission, unknown. But its final log said, "We go beneath, not to hide, but to remember. And when the stars forget us, we will return to remind them." That file had been deleted from Concorde archives. Twice. So now, for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Concorde stares at Earth and wonders what they missed, what they forgot, what they chose to ignore. And somewhere, far below the surface of a quiet Jovian moon, the lights are coming on. Because peace through ignorance? It never lasts. Out past the edges of every mapped sector, where gravitational math breaks down and starlight dims without explanation, lies a brown dwarf no catalog dares name. It is a dead sun, invisible to the untrained eye, a ghost hiding in the folds of space-time. Around it a shell, massive, seamless, silent. Project Vigil, humanity's final contingency. Not a weapon, a whisper in metal, a Dyson shell reimagined, not for energy, but secrecy. Built not around a star for light, but around a dead one for dark. Inside a shadow, 12 warships, each the size of a small moon. Each cloaked in gravitic shadow fields so refined they erase detection. Each named after Earth's most dangerous myths. Leviathan, Prometheus, Banshee, Kali's Laugh, Ragnarok, Ouroboros, Pandora's Mercy, and at their center, Oblivion's Mercy, the Keystone, the only ship with no command bridge. Because it doesn't require one. They weren't made to fight. They were made to wait. Designed during Earth's collapse century, built in secret through automated relay stations and generational drone fleets. Their purpose was clear. If we are ever threatened again, we will not shout. We will not beg. We will let the galaxy speak first. And if they come to erase us, we will let them see what we became in silence. They weren't built for victory. They were built to change the conversation. Most galactic civilizations build loud, brash, visible. They flex with city ships and parade fleets, blinding shields, glittering banners, fool's armor. But humanity learned. After extinction flirted with Earth one too many times. After alliances failed. After the last peace broke, not from invasion, but from boredom. Humanity understood. Visibility is vulnerability. So they disappeared and began vigil. The Dyson shell doesn't reflect. It absorbs heat, light, gravity itself. Inside, nothing behaves correctly. Physics doesn't fail. It just defers to design. And because it hides behind a dead star, the galaxy simply stopped looking. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. And in the middle of it all, Oblivion's mercy kept watching. Each ship carries no crew. Not anymore. Only one human remains in the entire shell. A caretaker, a woman named Juno Kepler. She was born in 0G, never touched soil, raised in silence. She speaks daily, to no one. Logging reports only she hears. Sometimes she sings. Sometimes the ships come back. She doesn't command them. She listens. Then one day, the sensor walls shift. A Concorde scout fleet goes silent near Sol. Not destroyed, just removed from causality. Juno checks the pulse of the shell. It's rising. The ships are waking. Not from threat, from pattern recognition. Something old has repeated, and the system knows what comes next. She opens her private log. If they're back, they're still arrogant. Let's see if they remember what silence built. Outside, the brown dwarf flickers once. Not heat, not light. A memory flare, broadcast in ancient Terran quantum code. One phrase, over and over. We never left. You stop looking. The Concorde's reach was long, but not infallible. Some corners of the galaxy still carried echoes. Old names, old wounds, old warnings. The Dracari, a proud, tusk-faced vassal species, didn't care for warnings. They found a Terran archaeosite buried under the crust of Helix 9, a mineral moon no one cared to chart. They assumed it was a relic. Dead. Forgotten. They assumed wrong. The excavation wasn't sanctioned. No diplomatic query. No announcement. Just intrusion. They cracked open a vault. Breached sealed chambers. Found strange writings etched into crystal walls. Maps not of systems, but decisions. Echoes of memories so dense they interfered with machinery. Then they found her. A human. Alive. In stasis. Awake within 5 minutes of breach. She didn't plead. She didn't warn. She simply looked at them and whispered, "You picked the wrong vault." Then she broadcast a 5-second pulse. Terran standard. Encrypted. Fragmented. Ancient. And detonated the moon. The Concorde dismissed it as a fanatic suicide. A shame, but irrelevant. The Dracari held a feast. For 3 days, they celebrated their cleansing of the dead species' last temple. On the 4th day, the sky changed. Helix 9's system had 4 moons. That night, it had 5. The astronomer screamed. This 5th moon didn't orbit naturally, didn't rotate, didn't exist in any gravitational data from the day before. No emissions, no surface features, just black curvature. Perfect. Silent. They tried to scan it. The scans failed. They tried to ping it. It replied, with a tone, not language, not math, a tone that made stars flicker. At Concorde High Command, observatories across 5 sectors registered a photon anomaly. The Dracari homeworld's sun had dimmed, just slightly, but impossibly. The reports came in. Star luminosity reduced by 0.03% across full band. No known physical cause. No flare activity. No energy discharge. It wasn't natural. Someone was bending the light. On Helix 9, the 5th moon shifted. A panel opened. Only one word engraved inside, glowing faintly in Terran script. Warden of Dust. Not a name. A sentence. The Warden did not attack. Did not speak. It simply remained. And everything changed. Gravity vectors on nearby vessels fluctuated. Shipboard AI developed memory corruption. Dracari commanders began dreaming of fire raining upward. When they tried to leave orbit, their engines refused. The warden wasn't holding them. Space itself was. The Concord convened an emergency council. Ancient advisors, the kind whose species had treaties older than planetary crusts, said only one thing. The Deathworlders have spoken. The Emperor laughed. It's a trick. Projection. Fear tactic. We'll dismantle it. No one volunteered. Not even the AI fleets. In a final act of arrogance, the Drake Harry fired a missile. It never reached the warden. It stopped in mid-space, hovered, then unraveled itself atom by atom. Each atom placed into a perfect crystalline prism, then dropped gently back to the surface. The message was clear. We're not here for revenge. We're here to see what you choose next. The Warden of Dust has not moved since. But the Dracarys sun has not brightened. And across the galaxy, old Terran vaults begin to hum. Not broadcasting, just listening. Because the first test is always the same. Will they learn? Or will they burn? Asterisk, asterisk. The Concord had never truly feared. Not extinction, not rebellion, not the weak. Fear to them was a tool, wielded against others, never themselves. But now they sat in the dark, and they listened to the silence between the stars. The ruling council convened in emergency quorum. 10 species, 10 empires. One shared illusion shattered. Humans were not lost, not diminished, not extinct. They had merely gone quiet. And now, they were awake. Footage from stealth probes filtered through the high command networks. Not doctored, not theory. Real-time. Massive objects drifting in planetary shadow. Not ships. Artificial moons. Crusts of natural rock and metal. Hollowed. Reinforced. Fitted with gravitational displacement cores the size of cities. No obvious weapons. No heat trails. But their presence warped telemetry for systems away. One Concord scientist presented a frame-by-frame breakdown. Each planetoid was laced with quantum engines. Their drive cores pulsed like hearts. And worst of all, no crew compartments. They weren't piloted. They were puppet, operated from light years away. Remote consciousness entanglement. No living risk. If humanity wanted, they could obliterate without sacrificing a single human life. A Concord admiral blinked slowly. They built gods they don't have to pray to. The mood turned darker when the strategic AI gave its summary. Probability of victory against one Terran war moon, 9%. Probability of surviving conflict with more than one, statistically null. Estimated count in current observation, 3. Possible maximum based on observed infrastructure. Unknown. Starfield anomaly detected. Asterisk, asterisk. What anomaly? Asked the commander. The AI displayed a star chart. Before and after comparisons. In Quadrant 7D, a constellation had shifted, not metaphorically. Physically, stars had repositioned. Mass distribution had changed. Light-bending patterns suggested massive constructs between stars, perfectly refracting. Someone whispered, "Those aren't stars. They're hulls." One general, older than some planets, sat back and said nothing for a long time. Then finally, she spoke. "We thought they were broken, but they were just choosing silence, letting us think we'd won." Panic crept in slowly, controlled at first, then infectious. Walls had Earth built in the quiet. What treaties had they monitored, judged, and filed away? What atrocities had they seen and chosen to wait? An intercepted data burst confirmed another horror. Some of the Terran constructs were moving, not through space, through dimensions, jumping without signatures, arriving before they left, violating every law of warp and time mechanics. No wormholes, no flashes. They simply appeared, where they were needed. A Concord tactician, desperate to salvage control, asked, "What do they want? Why reveal themselves now?" The room was quiet. Then a single message blinked onto the central display. "We asked for peace. You chose arrogance. We do not attack. We remember." The implications were clear. This wasn't retaliation. It wasn't conquest. It was history waking up. One Concord general finally said what none of them wanted to admit. They didn't fall behind. They simply stopped playing our game. And now, the board belonged to them. It began with a single sector, A deep space observatory near the fringe reported something strange. Not an explosion, not an invasion, just darkness. A star vanished. No nova, no debris, no gravitational flux. Still there, still burning, just hidden. Then another, and another. A constellation dimmed, then an entire quadrant. Astrophysicists scrambled, declared solar dust interference, sensor failure, cosmic coincidence. But the models didn't match. Infrared picked up outlines, perfect curves, sharp angles too massive to be natural. Something was moving between stars, and it was blocking light. Not randomly, deliberately. The Concorde's Deep Survey Division sent probes. Some returned static. Some didn't return at all. The ones that did captured glimpses, silhouettes larger than moons, structures the size of continents, adrift, yet purposeful. They weren't approaching worlds. They were approaching borders. The Concorde Council convened in secret. Satellites showed the same pattern. Unclaimed space was no longer empty. It was filling, slowly, silently, with shapes, forms that matched no known species. No standard construction methods. No known propulsion. They didn't fire, didn't signal. They just moved. One scientist finally said it aloud. They're megastructures. Engines, memories, maybe, all heading this way. The simulations agreed. At current rate, Concorde territory would be surrounded in a year. Not by ships, by planetary-scale monuments. And then came the message. All across the galaxy, from every drifting colossus, a signal activated. Not through comms. Visually, etched into each impossibly vast hull, like a warning carved across the cosmos. We waited. Ancient Terran script, recognizable even now, deliberately archaic, painfully legible. Panic set in. Some citizens thought it was a natural event, a cosmic shift, nothing to worry about. But the Concorde Council knew better. These weren't navigational accidents. They weren't constructs seeking resources. They were coming, not with speed, with certainty, like tombstones moving into position. Some tried to analyze the phrase. We waited. Was it blame, warning, vindication, or worse? A prelude. Emergency fleet mobilizations began. Concorde admirals issued quiet orders. Shipyards ran nonstop. But even with thousands of vessels, how do you fight something bigger than a moon? How do you attack a world that flies itself? How do you prepare for an enemy that never speaks, never strikes, but never stops moving? One junior analyst whispered what others feared. We thought they'd come back in warships. We were wrong. They came back as memories we can't shoot. And as more stars disappeared behind colossal shapes, the galaxy held its breath. Because whatever humanity had become, whatever they'd chosen to build in silence, was now marching across the night sky. And no empire, no matter how old or proud, was ready for the kind of vengeance that doesn't scream. It waits. They called it a necessary demonstration. But in truth, it was fear, not strategy, not honor. Fear dressed in protocol and arrogance. The Concorde Council authorized the strike at dawn. 12 regional sectors submitted ships, 500 in total. Among them, 7 experimental dreadnoughts with antimatter coil lances, 120 AI-driven swarm mines, and a carrier flagship forged in a neutron forge, bearing the title Absolute Sovereign. Their target? The Silence Crown, a strange shape, massive, drifting. It occupied Sector Delta, for like a cathedral built by physics itself. No energy signature, no weapons, no crew, just presence. Concorde analysts predicted it was a sensor array, a passive monitoring device, a soft target. So the fleet approached. Their hulls gleamed with fresh paint and ceremonial etching. Pride, not preparation. The commanding admiral, Rel Voken, declared over fleet comms. Let it be known, the silence ends today. The fleet engaged. First came the missile salvos. Warheads faster than light, tipped with miniature suns. They struck true and passed through the crown. Literally. No detonation. No resistance. The warheads phased through it like it was a memory, not a thing. Then came the pulse mines, programmed to seek thermal variance and neural resonance. They danced like silverfish across the crown's surface, then stopped, mid-spin, frozen. The AI flagged a new alert. Inversion event detected. Whatever that meant, it wasn't in the manual. Admiral Vulcan ordered full bombardment. Torpedoes, kinetic rail shots, gravitic disruption beams. The Crown did not defend. It did not dodge. It didn't need to. At 0341 galactic time, all 500 ships vanished. Not destroyed, not exploded, just absent. Every single sensor feed cut off mid-frame. Comms dissolved into static. Quantum tethers snapped with no energy spike. 1 second, 500 ships. Next, emptiness. An entire armada reduced to missing data. And then the broadcast came. It didn't ride on any known band. It simply appeared on every frequency, spoken in every language, in every voice, as if the message was saying itself. You have not been erased. You have been remembered poorly. That was all. No threats, no demands, just judgment. Across the Concorde, reality buckled. One of the Empire's machine presets collapsed overnight. Its central AI burned out by recursive logic collapse. A planetary religion on Ashavara 3 denounced its founders because the phrase matched an ancient prophecy. Beware the ones who do not destroy. They reflect. In war colleges, doctrine was shredded. Naval officers resigned en masse. One admiral, blinking into the stillness of a command bridge, just whispered, "We weren't attacked. We were shown." The public, however, did not feel fear. What spread was stranger. Awe. Something deeper than terror. Because fear fades when you think you can fight. But awe remains when you realize you never understood what you were standing against. In private chambers, one Concorde counselor finally asked aloud, "What if that ship isn't a weapon?" And a response? Then it's worse. It's a witness. And still, the silence crown drifts. Unmoving. Unstoppable. Unbothered. Just there. Like a truth you try not to learn. And now the stars themselves hold their breath. The Concorde Council reconvened in panic. The Silence Crown hadn't just defeated an armada. It had unwritten it. 500 vessels gone without a trace. A galactic precedent shattered like glass under thought. Across a dozen systems, military governors resigned. 100 more planets signed neutrality pacts with Earth, unsolicited. So the Council did what fearful powers always do. They begged, a request for parley. Neutral ground, no weapons. A plea, barely disguised as protocol. For days, they waited for a reply. Then a ship arrived. Small, smooth, silent, not cloaked, just unremarkable. Outstepped a single representative. Not a diplomat, not a soldier, not a machine. A teenage girl. She wore no armor, no insignia, just loose, earth-toned clothing and a simple satchel slung over her shoulder. She ate an apple. Security bristled. Weapons were half-drawn. Sensors blinked. She didn't care. She sat at the head of the negotiation table, polite, calm. Her voice was clear and soft. "We never left," she said. "You just stopped listening." The room erupted. Accusations flew. Deception, posturing, techno-theocracy, time-warp diplomacy. A Concorde elder shouted, "We watched your world burn." The girl raised an eyebrow. "You watched our wars, not our healing." Silence. Then she slid a small object across the table. A crystalline shard. Not metal, not glass. It pulsed gently with a hue no one could name. A data drive. She said one word. "View." They did. The feed expanded into a projection. First a map. Not of stars, but absences. Dead zones. Silent sectors. Abandoned colonies. Shattered moons. And from each, a shape emerged. First one, then 10, then hundreds, thousands. Each a construct the size of a continent. Each unique. Each moving with the slow grace of thought. The same class as Oblivion's Mercy. As Silence Crown. Each formed from ruin. An old Terran mining colony now fused into a solar-bending crescent. A lost Ark ship rebuilt as a floating seed vault with engines made of magnetic will. A forgotten battlefield, now orbiting a dead star, broadcasting stories in every tongue. And one thing in common, they were all aware. Every outpost became a mind, the girl explained. Every ruined moon became a memory. She looked around the silent chamber. You see weapons. We see reminders. You look for power. We build perspective. You fear we came to conquer. We came to warn. Someone asked what the warning meant. She took another bite of her apple. That humanity doesn't repeat its mistakes. We study them. We make them steal. The girl stood. The walls around them shifted. Not physically, but perceptually. Suddenly, every Concord delegate felt it. A presence far larger than their room. A quiet weight behind the air. Something was watching. Or many somethings. Not hostile, just attentive. Eyes behind void. Ears made of orbit. Memory woven into machine. The girl nodded, as if hearing their thoughts. We did not erase our pain. We gave it purpose. We did not hide from the stars. We became them. The projection shifted. Now, an overlay of the galactic map. All the systems Earth had been exiled from. Now blinking. Slowly. One by one. Because they weren't exile zones. They were roots. Every former Terran mark now pulsed with residual signals. Communications in new forms. Languages built from emotion and pattern. Even the Concord's capital world was revealed to sit within range of a construct. One so still, no one ever noticed it was watching. You called it collapse, she said softly. We called it chrysalis. She turned to go. One final question stopped her. What do you want from us? She paused. Turned back. I was not angry, just tired. To remember. To stop mistaking silence for weakness. And when the next great mistake rises, to stand beside us, not under us. The girl left. The ship vanished. And the council chambers dimmed, slowly, like even the lights needed time to think. Because somewhere out there, humanity had become something the galaxy never prepared for. A civilization that learned. And did not forget. The Concorde did not fall to fire. There were no sieges, no final stand, no valiant speeches broadcast from a burning palace. Instead, it ended in a whisper, a pause, and then surrender. Not from defeat, but from the realization that they had never been in control. Not really. For centuries, the Concorde had ruled through bluster, bureaucracy, and belief in its own permanence. They had crushed rebellions, silenced dissent, and rewritten history where needed. They thought themselves the apex of civilization. And then Earth returned. The last message came not through a fleet, not through firepower, but through presence. On 27 Concorde core worlds, the stars dimmed slightly. Not gone, just partially eclipsed. As planet ships arrived, they came without warning, without sound. They hovered above capitals like slow, patient moons. Their hulls bore no weapons ports, no glowing reactors, just smooth obsidian curves etched with ancient human phrases. Memory is a better deterrent than vengeance. Each ship did nothing. No broadcasts, no threats, just being there. And somehow, that was worse, because no one knew what they were capable of. But everyone remembered what they had already seen. Inside council chambers, the surrender order passed without a vote. It didn't need one. No one objected, not out of fear, but because fear had already passed. What remained was awe. Across the galaxy, governments and species once aligned under Concorde hegemony began reaching out, not in defiance, not in desperation, but with curiosity, a quiet cascade of messages. Can we learn? Can we understand? Can we be better? Humanity did not reply. Not directly, but one by one, access was granted. To archives older than the Concorde's founding. To records kept on planet ships that floated through dead sectors. Each archive was different. Some taught philosophy through simulated regret. Some played the sounds of extinct forests and asked, would you have saved it? Others required no questions, just listening. Listening to what had been lost, and to what could still be remembered. A new era did not begin with a treaty. There was no ceremony. Instead, it began in orbit, as species across the stars looked up and saw watchers instead of rulers. Not an empire, but witnesses. Humanity had transcended vengeance. They did not need to destroy tyrants. They simply waited for them to collapse under their own weight. In one system, a former Concorde admiral tried to rally resistance. He armed his fleet, set coordinates for Earth. He never made it past the Kuiper Shelf. His ship was found adrift days later. Every weapon disabled, every file replaced, one phrase looping across every screen. Peace was offered. You chose memory. Back on Earth, nothing changed. The planet remained sealed to outsiders. Its skies protected, its oceans silent, its cities humming with quiet industry. But from time to time, a signal would pulse outward. Not commands, not warnings, just stories, memories of what once was, and what never needed to happen again. Then came the last message, broadcast through every known channel, every translation matrix, every ship AI, every planetary uplink. A simple message, no theatrics, no music, just text. We prepared in silence, so war would never be needed. It was not a threat. It was a closing line, a punctuation on an epic. And with it, the last of Earth's planet ships turned. Not retreating, just resuming their watch, spreading out across the void. Not to conquer, to guard. In time, the galaxy changed. Not from force, but from reflection. War ceased to be entertainment. History became sacred. Jokes returned to politics, not as satire, but as reminders that pride could blind. And in every major capital, in every educational temple, in every military academy, a statue was raised, not of a soldier, not of a hero, but of a single figure, small, calm, and human. A figure standing before a massive star map, holding a stone inscribed with a phrase that shaped the galaxy's future. Remember well, forget nothing, become more, and above them, always, the silent watchers, vessels older than empires, still drifting, still remembering, still human.